You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma Podcast. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode. Excited to share this episode with you today, but before we do, I've got to thank our sponsors. First of all, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame. They've been a huge part of this podcast for the last few years. So the Oklahoma Hall of Fame have been sharing Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com. And for daily updates, go to oklahomahof on Instagram and give them a follow. Our other sponsor today is Chickasaw Nation. Now, the Chickasaw Nation have sponsored pretty much everything in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma. And it's an honor to have their name and their brand supporting this podcast. A huge shout out to Governor Anatobi for supporting this podcast. It really means a lot. Our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them, do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln. This episode is presented by Citizens Bank of Edmond. Citizens Bank of Edmond has been serving Edmond since 1901. They pride themselves on investing in the community and are here for all your personal and business banking needs. For more information, go to mycitizens.bank and follow them on Instagram at citizensedmond, as well as go bank there, because I bank there too. It's been a fantastic personal experience for me. I've had my podcast account there now, my podcast business account there now for 4 years now, I think, and it's been fantastic. So definitely worth your time. They're a great group of people, and they're always there to answer the phone when I forget my password, because I seem to forget it daily. So yeah, go to Citizens Edmond and check them out. It's been awesome. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, host, back with another episode, back in Guthrie, America.
Yes.
With the man. Third time on the podcast.
3 times. Is there anybody that's been more than 3?
Just Jake Keys is up to 3. You and Jake.
I gotta beat Jake.
3,
I gotta get him. I feel honored.
There's a few people at 2. Kelly Masters is at 2. I'm sure there's a bunch of others, but yeah, you and Jake are now at 3.
That's legit.
In 600 episodes, there's 2 people that have got to
600 episodes.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
It's crazy, right?
What? So when did you do 600? Is it already published?
Yeah, 600 was Friday, the last Friday, so whatever that was.
600. How does that feel?
It doesn't feel that much.
Really?
Which is kind of weird to say.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't, like, and I know you're in this world too, but it just doesn't, it feels awesome, right? You know, 600 is a lot, and 600 is a lot than most people in the podcasting world do.
Yes.
But it's hard to put it into, like, context, right?
Yeah.
It's just a number, but then if you put those guests in a room, maybe it's like 400 guests,
That's
right?
crazy.
Or like 450 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Which is really
crazy
cool.
way to think about it.
It's 600 stories, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
So-
no, that's really cool. I can't remember the stat, but one time, the stat was crazy on how many people only do one episode. Just one. It's like, I want to say it was in the 80 percentile.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy. It may change now because podcasting has become such a relevant thing, but yeah, the number was crazy. So to do 600, man, is...
Yeah. I mean, I've started 4 others and failed miserably at the others, right? Like, I'm part of that stat as well.
oh, well, I'm right there with you.
Like, yeah. But it's just, this is the one I stuck with. And it's just kind of, you throw a bunch at the wall and see what sticks, right? And this is the one that stuck. So, but yeah, it's been a blast. Last time we checked, I think we checked in was quite a while back. And I want to say it was like, we did 2 in 2020.
Okay.
Was like kind of start of the year at the end of the year. And so those are the ones people can go listen to, and I'll link them below. But in the last 4 years, I mean,
a lot's happened.
Lots changed. Right?
COVID's happened.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff has changed. I mean, still in Guthrie America, though.
Yeah.
I'm still here, and one of the cool things that I think Guthrie continues to see some good momentum. COVID kind of slowed us down, but man, I'm really excited about the growth of our community, and it's cool to see schools busting out of the scenes because it just speaks to how many people are coming here now, and we're in that weird phase. It seems like to me, now this is me on the outside, but we're building new schools and then growing out of them.
Yeah.
You know, because we just have so many kids moving in. I think I just had the director of economic, I think this, whatever, for Guthrie, for the city. And she was saying 800 homes in the city and 900 on the outskirts of the city limits.
And they're still building.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like 800 new, 900.
Yeah.
800 in the city limits, and I think she said 900 on the
Dude, it's so awesome.
outside. Yeah, Shonda was telling me that, and I was like, I think those numbers are correct.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's crazy.
Well, and like I said, you talk about the schools, but you talk about, you know, the businesses that are here and the businesses now surviving here and new business coming in. And, you know, it's that's kind of been the issue over the years, right? It's like everyone would love to be up here, but it's just the community here that sustains itself. It's very hard to get people up from Edmond or Oklahoma City to come and have a date night or, you know, whatever it is that they do. You know, it's not just the rodeo that's bringing people to town now.
No, yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah, that's so true. I think 2016 we started an event called Red Brick Nights, still going. And it's one of those things like that has helped us get traffic here in places like Hoboken and Missy's Donuts and Rick's chocolate and coffee. You know, it's places like that have been the stables, the restaurant, you know, those kind of places keep bringing people here as well. And so it's just really cool to see that we have kind of like a foundation and people are coming.
Yeah, it's exciting. And you're in the thick of it. You know,
I've been here in the thick of it.
Yeah.
I graduated high school from here, moved, and then 2007, my wife also graduated from here, decided that we would move back here because the crazy story is my wife goes somewhere and she's driving back home and she sees my oldest son running down the street on 10th and Council, running down the street, and she's like, is that Kenneth is his name? And she pulls up and it's Kenneth running down the street, and he's supposed to be in school. He's in first grade. I think he's in first grade, second grade, something like that. Yeah. And so she takes him back to the school. This is how, pray for my wife. This is how she tells the school, she asks the school to go get her son, go get Kenneth. And they begin to look for him frantically and can't find him because she has him in the car.
Yeah.
And so at that time, we did have a conversation later that night. And it was like, man, if our son's going to be leaving the school and running down the street, do we really want that to be in the city? And so we started saying, where do we want to move small town wise, and ended up coming back home, which has been really great in 2007. And it's been really cool.
Yeah. And you've been doing a bunch of stuff recently and a bunch of stuff over the last few years that, you know, our two conversations were very centered around, you know, Guthrie America, Choose Guthrie, and then Go Win was obviously the big thing too, and still is. Give us a little recap on what you've been up to then the last 4 years, just kind of personally from your eyes, what it looks like for you that you've been up to for the last 4 years. Man,
so raising my children, like now I have a 25-year-old, I have an 18-year-old who's a senior. Then I have a daughter that's a junior. So that's been incredible just to kind of watch them grow and be able to serve them as a parent and just kind of help them navigate life. So that's been really cool. A lot can happen in 4 years, especially thinking like my son was a freshman and now he's a senior. So getting ready to transition out of high school. That's been great. 4 years ago, we were only 4 years old as far as the church goes, which is North Church Guthrie, the church that I helped be a part of from the launch. And so that's been cool to kind of see, like, we were in a school for the first 4 years, and now the last 4, we've had our own facility. So that's been crazy to navigate because there's something about just being in the school, and the school kind of, you just pay rent, and they manage everything. But now you have your own facility. So the last 4 years, I've kind of been learning to manage a building, you know, and there's so many different things that comes with that. But that's been awesome. 5 years ago, I started to wear red socks every day. And so I'm going on, I think this is going to be my 6th year wearing Red Sox every day. And so that's been kind of cool because, you know, you start being known by something, and something as simple as a pair of socks. So I see people now. The interesting thing about this is, like, people ask me for red socks as though, like, they can't Google. They be like, I can't find red socks. I'm like, you have not been looking for red. I just go with that. I'm like, oh, really? Yeah. Well, I get mine from, you know, and I tell them where I get my red socks. But it's been really cool. It's been a great conversation starter. Of course, it's great for branding. People kind of know you by something. And so that's been really cool. This past year, I was on a mission to write 3 ebooks. I ended up getting 2 out. Okay. So that's been great. Did one for teachers. So it's called Hello, A Letter to Teachers. And it's really just talking about the impact teachers have when they acknowledge you, even in times that you probably don't deserve to be acknowledged because you've been bad or whatever. But it's those teachers that keep saying hello to you, that keep speaking to you, seeing you. And I just really later in life just started recognizing just how special teachers are. In a sense of how they make an impact on people. I get the opportunity to go speak at different places, and I often ask the room, like, who has been impacted by a teacher in the room? And every hand goes up. And so is that the same? You're not from the States. Is that the same?
My math teacher came to mind, and my high school math teacher was just like, that.
Yeah, right? Yeah. So it's that kind of thing. So in that, wrote that, and then I wrote an ebook about starting a podcast. And so because there's so many people who want to do this, and it's super simple. But to us, it is. Yeah, we feel like it's easy to do. Just hit play or whatever.
Just hit record.
Yeah, just hit record. Yeah, it's not that hard. Don't hit play. But hit play after we record it. And so that's been really good.
Okay, back up a little bit. Explain why you decided to wear just red socks almost 5 years ago.
Yeah, so the red sock thing. One, like, I want to try to be more minimalist.
Okay.
And so, like, not having to make a whole bunch of decisions, can kind of just get up and know what you're going to do and not have to think about a lot of different things. And it was crazy to me how often I think about which socks I was going to wear, or trying to make sure that socks have a match and all these things. And so for some reason, red stood out to me, and I just decided to make it red socks. And people are always like, why don't you just change colors? Like, you can do it. I'm like, right. I'm all in on the red socks.
Yeah, I mean, we look around the room, red microphone cables, red and black is a theme of yours. Yeah, right? So it totally fits and makes sense. So it's funny that, like, people reach out to you and, like, I can't find red socks anyway. You know?
It's crazy because you can just Google red socks. I think they're just really wanting to mention the red socks. And but it's funny. Like, no, you can find red socks. Just Google.
What's been, like, some of the breakthrough things that you've realized from just wearing red socks every day? Talking from, like, a branding perspective, and, like, something as simple as just wearing red socks, but, like, there's obviously a bigger message there, and people recognize you for that. So what's that been like?
Yeah, I think one of the things I've recognized is, like, it is really hard, even up until now, because people want you not to wear the same thing every day, right? And so there's this cultural thing, or the world, right? It's kind of hard not to want to go with the way everybody else does things. And so to wear red socks every day kind of has helped me recognize, like, it's okay not to have to do the same thing that everybody else does. But man, from a branding perspective, I think branding is all about people know you for something. And so once they do, they acknowledge you about that. And so I think it's just been really good to recognize, even more so, like, I have Go In, where a lot of people know me by that. But it's just cool to see, like, this wearing the same thing every day, showing up every day, doing the same thing, and people know you for that. It's just something cool about it.
Yeah, it's that consistency, right? Of just once you've done it so many times, like, kind of same for me. Everyone knows me as, like, the podcast guy because I've done it so many times now.
600 of them.
Yeah, which is nuts.
600 times.
I was with I had coffee with David Skidmore a couple of days last Friday, and there's a website, and he's like, have you looked at your podcast? You can type any podcast into this website, and it says where you are globally ranked in this thing. And it's really cool. Yeah. And I can't remember the link right now, but I'll put it in the show notes when I remember it. But you just type in your podcast, and it says, like, how many episodes you've done and what your global rank is. It's really, really cool.
That is cool.
Globally, see where you rank in the podcasting world. And I think David's in like the top 5%.
Really?
And so mine was top 2.5%.
Wow.
Which is nuts when you think of globally,
nuts.
right?
Yeah.
And I don't know how they do. I don't know if it's just amount of episodes or listens. I don't know how they figure it out. But then you obviously type into like, you know, Joe Rogan and it's like the one. Yeah, it's fascinating. But from a podcasting perspective,
that your name's even like it's even in the system.
It's nuts, right?
It is.
And
nuts.
so it just kind of blew my mind. But kind of to that point, like we have used podcasting as a way to connect with people, as a way to tell stories. It to us is the simplest way to meet people and to get those stories out. Interested to hear your perspective on podcasting, like, because I tell everyone they should start a podcast because just to us it makes sense. But interested just to hear, like, you know, you've been doing it for so long. Like we talked about starting a bunch and failing a bunch too. You know, I've had 3 or 4 others that are just collecting dust in the internet somewhere.
What's the hard part about, like, why do you think those have not survived and this one has? Time. I think because so what I did was I started like a car specific one, a golf specific one, and a real estate specific one. And like those ones, they could have all just been one podcast. And then each episode should have been, okay, today's episode's a golf episode. Today's episode's, instead of just doing 3, because then I've got to keep up one a week. Right? Instead of just being like, oh, I could do one, but I can pick from 3 topics. It was, I made them more specific to a thing rather than just making it a podcast about me. Like my personal stuff that I enjoy doing, and then talking about those 3 things. Right? That would have been much. So that's kind of in the back burner. That's like whenever I have a little. So then I will only have 2. Right? It's like This Is Oklahoma, and then whatever the Mike Hearn one is that just gets to talk about cars, whatever you golf, want to, fun stuff, right? Which then evolves how I evolve. No, that's cool. I think that's always the best. Like once you give it something, a name, kind of like cars, whatever. So now it's like, all right, all I can talk about is cars. And that's what I did to Heady Coleman. Like I've changed kind of the theme or who I sit down with several times, right? But it's just about me and being able to follow up on whatever the passions are, the things that I enjoy the most at that time, or the things that I want to highlight. Specifically, like teachers have been recently my thing, as far as sitting down with teachers and telling their stories and just really highlighting them because I believe in the work that they do. And so that's been really cool for me. But podcasting, man, I'm the same as you. I always tell people, like, start a podcast. When people's like, how do I get my name out there? How do I connect with people? Start a podcast. And it's that easy, but it's not that easy. Like, just because you start one doesn't mean that people are going to listen. But I think having that, you can use it for social media. You can use it for crafting your communication skills, which is always a good thing to do. You can use it for the most part. Like, have you ever been turned down? Has anybody ever said no to you about being on your podcast?
I mean, no, but I don't know. I've had a few not right nows. You know, like, I'll do it, but it's not the right time for me. Reach out to me in kind of 6 months. But I've never had someone say explicitly, no, I'm never going to do one. They just kind of push it down the road. And it's then on me to keep following up. So, And
that's the thing. Like, I think most people would say, majority of the people will say yes if you ask them to be on your podcast. So if there's a way that you want to connect with somebody. Now, if you're reaching out to Beyonce and you know what I'm saying,
and I am reaching out to some, I'm Russell Westbrook and KD and like Garth Brooks and Reba and like, I have my dream list, right? But the people who are like realistically attainable, no, you're right. No one said no.
So no, but it's a great way to be able to connect with people and just really get to know people, which I think has been great. And so I love podcasts. If there was anything that I could probably do just full time, like if there was a dream job, podcasting probably would be
just walk in, have an assistant set all this stuff up, sit down in a comfy chair and just record. Right?
I would have an assistant who manages getting the schedule, everything lined up, and then I would have a social media person. And I would just rock it out. You know? And I say that and I'm like, well, why can't you just do that? And because it's the same way when I tell people to start a podcast. I mean, I guess I I could, and probably if I put it in the work and over time, it could happen for me.
Yeah.
Not saying I would be Joe Rogan.
No, but
there's a way to build this thing to where it could be sustainable.
No, I agree. Well, and we've both kind of tried different things, and things have worked and things haven't worked, and through that you find out what works and what you don't want to do. And I think one of the things I remember you trying is just having like a kind of managing a podcast in every town, right?
Yep.
Finding someone to host it.
Yeah.
And logistically it makes sense on paper, but then you have to rely on others.
Yeah.
And that's where it gets sticky.
Yeah.
It's because like other people like it's hard to find the right people.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's no saying
scheduling times. Yeah. That's the reason it's hard to have a co-host. It's like then you got to make sure that you both have the same time available. Then if you have guests, then you got to make sure that you have your guest and been able to sit down with them. But I think it's worth it. I think it's easier just to kind of rock at your own show. Now, the thing that I wish I could do is just to be able to have a podcast where I don't really even have to have a guest. Maybe guest periodically, but I can just jump in front of the camera and hit record and just talk about something every day.
Which is kind of goes back to what you would do as a pastor, maybe, or a traditional pastor sometimes does that, right? But they're just doing it in a podcast form.
Yeah.
Just goes and shares their message. But then your messages doesn't have to be, it's tied into faith because that's the world you're in, but it doesn't have to be all about faith.
No,
right?
It does not. And I've tried it. Like I have the daily Bible reading podcast.
Okay.
To where I'll talk about just life stuff, but then also I'll just talk about whatever I read that day. And so I kind of have it, but it's one of those ones that's on the getting dust, and I need to go back and dust it off. But it's just a matter of time and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
But I love it.
Are you still doing public speaking?
Yeah, I do. So 2024, one of the things that I'm doing now is partnering with my son, who's the senior.
Yeah.
And so I'm saying I'm not taking any speaking engagements unless they don't mind me. And they don't have to pay me. I just want to give him some reps. And we'll come in and do a Go Win session and a talk around Go Win. And he's and so we did our first one last Sunday, which was really cool to be able to do that with him. But public speaking is another one of those things. It's like, it's just, it's a fun job. It takes work, but man, you get so much out of it outside of just being on the stage, meeting new people, getting to travel different places, going to places that you probably never thought that you would go to. And it's just been really great. But the most fulfilling thing is when somebody messages you later and be like, hey, man, I got this out of your talk and I've implemented it. So, because there's so many places you go and never hear from anybody. And so you never know if like, all right, what I said, did it even register? Did it make a difference with people? Like, was I just there talking or what? So, but I really enjoy public speaking.
And it's Zane that's got into it, right?
Zale.
Yeah, okay.
Zale.
So he's got into the kind of which he was big in tennis, right? And chose not to pursue tennis anymore, which was a big decision for a young guy to make that, because I know he was pretty good at it. Yeah. And spent a lot of time doing it from what I see from you following. And a lot of money too.
A lot of money trying to get him coached up and all that stuff.
Yeah. What's it like then as a dad to see him kind of become a young man and take kind of after you and go into the public speaking, into the pastor world, and just kind of pour into, his friends and his peers and everyone that's around and everyone that he feels like he has a need to pour into?
Yeah. It's pretty amazing. My friend and I had coffee today, and we were just talking about being fathers and what that looks like, and some of the keys to being a successful father, and then we should start talking about our sons. His son does something similar to what he does, and then we start talking about Zell, and I have two sons, and so Zell's probably more like me personality wise. And of course, you just want all of your children to be successful. But when one comes alongside and kind of wants to mimic exactly what you do, there is a sense of like pride as a father, as a parent. And it's been really cool to be able to see him kind of own that and really want it for himself. It wasn't something that I pushed him into or anything like that. He came to this himself. And so it's been really cool. And I think he's much better at it than me, so that's kind of hard to swallow. And so one of the things for me, like, I'm just kind of naturally charismatic. Like, it's just kind of who I am as a person, and he kind of has that. So I want him to work harder than than I worked, right? Just don't lean into your natural giftings, like really work at it and make it something great. And I think that's, for me, that's what I want to see him do versus, you can just go up there and do it, and your gifting can kind of get you down the road. But, man, work at it and be great. And so, but it's cool to see, man. It's really cool, and it's fun to watch, and I can't wait to see 5 years down the road.
Yeah, because and the blessing of him coming from the athlete side of things and putting in the reps and the hours and going to the gym and all that stuff, he has that mentality to throw into, whether it's public speaking, researching, whatever it is that he wants to do in the pastor world, and gonna just put that same mentality into it, because that's hard to you can't just buy that.
No,
right? Like that's reps.
No, that's what I was gonna say. For you, an athlete, great golfer, do you think you're getting out there hitting the thousands and millions of balls and showing up every day kind of has helped you with the podcast and to getting to 600? Like, you know what it means to just keep grinding and getting after it.
Yeah, it's back to consistency, right? Like, and you never fail, you just learn, right? And I know that's cliche to say, but it's true. And like, the more that you keep doing, and I did a podcast a couple of days ago with a guy who is considered one of the greatest bull riders of all time. I don't know much about bull riding at all. I put my cowboy boots on that day just to kind of be respectful. And one of the things that he said, we did this podcast yesterday, and one of the things that he said, because he is now, his name is JB Morney. I think I'm saying that right. Have you ever heard that audio clip on Instagram or TikTok where it's like, he's the $7 million bull rider? Have you ever seen that? That's him. He's the only guy, I think, from what I gathered in my limited research, he's the only guy as a PBR bull rider that's made over $7 million.
Wow.
Right? But last year he broke his neck. And so he's gone off the bull riding to become a coach. And so he is the coach of Oklahoma's only pro bull riding team now. And they'll do their debut at Paycom Center in July. And so he was doing a press release yesterday, and they did him and the GM, who's from Edmond, and the owner is from Oklahoma. So, but he was considered one of the best, or is one of the best. And he made a great comment. He's like, I never ever talk about like the reps that I'm doing at home on my ranch. He's like, every day I get up and I work, and I work at my craft. Yeah. And he's like, I don't tell anybody about it. I don't feel like I need to. I just work as hard as I can possibly work alone on my ranch. And he's like, that's what sets me apart, right? Yeah. It's not parading around, like taking selfies. Look at me, I'm getting it in today, or whatever, or taking your gym selfie, whatever it is. Like, he's just getting after it in the just early mornings, late nights, like every single day, whether he feels like it or not, And
that's pretty cool.
He was considered, like, he's made the only pro bull rider right now to make over $7 million. It's a lot of money.
That is a lot of money
for riding bulls.
Yeah,
like, you couldn't pay me enough to ride a bull. There's no way. Like,
you could give me $7 million.
Yeah, like the fact that he has to get on an animal that could kill him every single time. Like, risk his life.
Yeah. Now, how do you make money? Is that sponsorship? I wonder if it's sponsorship.
Yeah, it's a lot of sponsorships. Yeah. Like, a lot of. I mean, they have a huge. PBR is growing and growing, and there's a lot of money in sponsorships, and obviously being the best, and it's a mad sport. But now he's on the coaching side. But it was just it was kind of, it hit me that it's those reps, right? And it's those reps that no one sees you doing, or it's I've done 600 episodes. I've probably done about 700. There's 100 out there that are just terrible, that might not see the light of day, or they're on a different podcast that they didn't succeed, right? Or whatever it is, hidden away somewhere, right? But then it's also the conversations that you have with friends that aren't recorded. Like, how many times do you have you as the position you're in as a pastor, as someone who's used to meeting one-on-one with people, like, how much better are your skills now because of you reps, right? You're having more conversations, and that's where I tell people too, is it's not about like my podcast is very easy in my head because it's the guest story, right? Whereas a lot of people, like, I think that the biggest cheat code in podcasting is have a guest on, so you don't have to talk that much. That's right. You just ask a few questions. But if it's the one where you talk a lot, then that's really hard to do. You have to have a message, and you've got to think about the podcast and set a plan, and the easiest way is to get a guest on. But the good thing from that, having a guest, is that you get to have reps and have great conversations, or have bad conversations and learn from how you direct a conversation, and it flows, and ask the difficult questions at the right time.
Yeah. You know, and I never thought about it in that way. It's like every coffee that I sit down with, I'm really taking another rep to be able to have an interview on the podcast. Because when you think about getting better at what we do as far as podcasting, like, what is something that you do to say, hey, I'm doing this to get better at podcasting?
I mean, I have my notes in front of me. Like, I literally take notes, or I wrote notes every single time I do a podcast, like, just to recap, you know, like, just to make sure it's fresh of mind and things, and because there's so many things we're thinking of when we're interviewing someone, right, to keep the conversation going. But it's just nice to refer to, you know, and even if you don't refer to it, the conversation may go in a totally different direction, that you can't speak about something you've just written down. But if it is, it's there, it's ready to go. What
do you send people before? And I know I'm different, but is there something that you normally do on the back end or pre-podcast with your guest?
It depends. Not really. And I won't send it unless they ask.
Okay.
Some ask, and others I just say, here's the podcast link. Go listen to a few episodes. You'll get the kind of idea of it.
Yeah.
And then just before we record, I always ask, what do you want to talk about? Or what do you not want to talk about? And then I can just so I know and I'm aware. And I always kind of tell them, look, it doesn't have to go out if you don't like it. You know, you got the option to listen to it if you want it before it goes out. Most people say, nah, it's fine. But if the ones that do, if they don't like it, then it won't go out. Or if we need to edit things.
Have you ever had somebody say no?
There's been one. And actually, the guest, I won't say the name of the guest, but the guest said it as I was walking out of the building from recording. Like, hadn't even listened to it. We got done with the conversation. Yeah, we got done with the conversation, and I'm packing up, and I'm walking out. I was like, "Thanks so much. I'll edit it. I'll send it to you." You know, I go through my spiel. If you don't want it to go out, it won't go out. And she just like, it was a woman. She just goes, "Yeah, I don't want it to go out." It's just like, I just sat here for an hour. Like, you could have just told me an hour ago you didn't want to do this.
Oh my god! So do you think if you wouldn't have asked in that moment?
I'm sure I would have got an email later or a text, right? I just
like,
asked.
Did you open the door? Like, you would have just left it then, and she may have never said it.
So,
but she was like, no, don't do it.
Yeah, and I mean, I've re-recorded a couple. I had a guest on who just wasn't comfortable. I think he'd had a pretty tough day. We recorded at his office, and he was just like, he had had a busy day at the office, and he had the constant reminder in the office of like the day and the things that he had to do. And I came in to do a podcast, and he's like, my mind's not in the right place, you know. And I'd send it to him, and he'd listen to it, and he's like, can we do another one? I was like, yeah, sure. And the second one was so much better.
Oh, good.
He knocked it out of the park. It was so good. You know, and he's a younger guy too. I think he just overthought a few things and wasn't thinking clearly. And the second time, we nailed it. And so he was super pumped to do that. So it's kind of a big Oklahoma brand that he runs for a family business.
Oh. Now, have you ever had to, how often do you have to edit stuff out? Like in your 600, how many do you think? 10? 20?
I take things out, like what people have said. Yeah. I'd probably say 25.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which isn't a lot, right? You know, yeah, less than 10%. 5% would be 30, right? If my math's right. Yeah, about that. Like the cowboy episode I did yesterday, I got to edit that one a lot because you know he did not hold back on certain words and the way on his views on the world, and just I need to like soften that one a little bit.
Yeah, he's a cowboy though.
He is the realest guy. Like, if there's ever like someone who is just a real human being, that is who it is, right?
That was him.
Yeah, like
that's funny.
I did ask him one question. I said, you know, because people always talk about the cowboy way of life, right? It's a very kind of honest, hardworking, salt of the earth kind of human beings who are real cowboys or work in the Western world and, you know, ranching, whatever. I said, how do you translate that out of bull riding? Because bull riding's got a lot more outside view, you know, eyeballs on it now. People are starting to come to bull riding to watch it that aren't ranchers and in that world. I said, how do you teach that way of life outside? And the first thing he said, he's like, I'll cut off the thumbs of all the keyboard warriors.
Oh
and
my!
I was just like, okay, you know, realistically, how do you share that message?
How would you do that?
But no, he's just an insane story.
You did Ray though. bootmaker.
Ray was great. Yeah.
Ray's a cat. Like, he's a
Ray
real
and
deal
Bo,
cowboy.
we did together.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's
Because
right.
Eric Granado co-hosted with me because he'd done photo with them, and Ray and Bo were awesome. Lisa's been on too. Lisa Sorrell was on towards the end of last year. Yeah, Guthrie's full of just great cowboy western culture, and you got two of the world's finest bootmakers, and they're less than a mile apart in the same town, right? Like, it's so good.
It's so great. I'm thinking about I'm pastor at North Church Guthrie, and one of the things that I really enjoy about our church is just the diversity of it, and we not only have Ray, the cowboy, but we have several others. But then you have me, and we have a rapper, and it's kind of really cool to see the hodgepodge of Guthrie America in the church setting. And one of the things that I appreciate about doing the work I do.
Because you bring in that influence from Langston and everything that, your culture and the way you've grown up. And then, like I said, you got Ray and the Western world that all comes to meet in Guthrie in this kind of melting pot. Yeah. And it's amazing how, whether it's faith or food or music or whatever it is that brings you all together, coffee at Hoboken, it's just the great thing to do and sit and chat. And whether there's a microphone in front of you or not, we should do more of that. And it's something that the more we get into technology, the less and less we sit and talk in person, right, with no phones involved, right? Like, when do we ever do that? We're lucky that we get to do that, and we've kind of crafted a way to do it as a living or help us with our living. But I think if I didn't have a podcast, I would struggle to, not struggle, but like I would have to be really intentional about having conversations with friends. Right. Whereas with a podcast, you kind of it's such an easy cheat code to sit with someone. Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's a lot easier to ask someone to be on your podcast than it is to say, hey, let's go out for a chat for an hour. Right? True. Let's talk about life for an hour. Someone's gonna be like, are you okay? What's wrong with you? Right. Like, you don't even know me like that. Why would you? Right. And it's funny. One of my previous guests said, someone he's from LA, moved out here from LA in the podcasting world as well, kind of TV, movie, podcast producer type world. And he's like, he just doesn't have enough guy friends here yet to just go watch. He loves basketball. Go watch basketball and have a beer and watch the game. And so he asked a friend of his wife's, her husband, just said, hey, hey, do you want to go for a beer and watch the game? And he sits down, at like the bar downtown. I think it was Jones Assembly in Oklahoma City. And the guy leans over and goes, okay, well, what's going on? Are you guys, you doing okay at home? Like, why do you want to come? And he's like, I just want to have a beer and watch the game. Like, no, everything's fine, right?
Everything is good.
Because we don't do it. Like, we don't. Everyone assumes that something's wrong if you ask another guy to go and have a casual drink or one or two and just have dinner and watch the basketball. Yeah. Just because
it's nuts.
Because we used to do that all the time, but technology has taken that away. But,
for sure.
You mentioned teachers a little bit. Dive into the teachers, because I know the red balloons ties into all that stuff too, which is another thing you've implemented. Yeah. So tell me more about the teachers and why you decided to write an ebook as well and call it Hello.
Yeah. So teachers, I have come to learn in my time here in Guthrie, being involved, that schools really are the foundation of a community to a certain degree. Meaning, like, when people ask me about moving to Guthrie, the first thing that they ask about are, what are the schools like? Yeah. Like, they want to know what the schools are like. And so out of that, I have just really been intentional about how do we support the local school? Because I know that people are looking at that as what determines if they're moving to a community. Now, if those people want to move here or not, that's cool. But I do know that we still need great schools because we have kids here and we want to invest our best in the next generation, and that starts at schools. And in order for schools to happen and be successful, you have to have great teachers. And teaching is a very hard profession, meaning like you got 20 to 30 students in the classroom. You're trying to teach them. They could all be learning differently. They all got different stuff going on at home. Some of them may not be eating at home. There's just so much there, and the teacher just has a lot going on. And so I just really want to become intentional about encouraging teachers to continue to do the work that matters and that the world needs, is the way that I look at it. And so one of the ways that I do that is just by simply bringing red balloons to teachers. And It started out as just a red balloon and like a handwritten note, and now it's a red balloon, handwritten note, and we have this company called Inspire that makes cookies, and we typically put cookies with them, or we sometimes put a $10 gift card to a local coffee shop or something like that. But I just want to keep teachers encouraged. I just really believe in the work they do. I admire them. There's nothing better than being able to give somebody some information that allows for them to live a better life.
Yeah.
And teachers do that. And so I just want to support them, and Red Balloons has been a part of that. Now, we take Red Balloons to other people too. Like, I reach out to people like, hey, do you know anybody that needs some encouragement? I want to take them a Red Balloon. And that's just, I'm an encourager. I love people, and I love just showing up. And again, it's kind of like podcasting. Oftentimes, I don't even know these people, and I'm reaching out to people to have a podcast or be able to bring red balloons to people. And they be like, "Who are you? And what are you doing?"
Yeah.
And so that's it's good to be able to attach a name. Hey, Brenda, just wanted to let you know that you're awesome, and so I'm delivering this red balloon for you. And man, it's been by far one of the special things that I've gotten the opportunity to do in life, and that's just be able to take somebody a red balloon to encourage them.
Yeah,
it's been really cool, man. And I don't know how many I've taken around, but it's been a lot, and we want to keep doing more.
Yeah. You kind of talked about communities there too. Share a little bit more about like communities in Guthrie, and obviously everywhere there's like separate communities, right? And obviously the ultimate goal is to, like you said, what you have lucky enough to have at church too is like everyone comes together, and there's so many different communities coming together. Yeah. How important is that? And then how important has podcasting been to tie those in? Yeah. So I host a podcast called Guthrie America Podcast, and before that was a podcast, it was just a blog where I would. I designed this T-shirt, a Guthrie America T-shirt, and I bought 10 of them, and I picked 10 people, and I asked them, could I send them a set of questions? I emailed them the questions. They respond, they send back to me. Then we would do a photo shoot, and then this is when blogging was a thing, and we would share it via the blog. And the reason that I did that was, one, because I believe that as we share our stories, we connect. Like you and I, because you shared your story, I share my story. We now both know, like, oh, we are into podcasting. We connect. We become friends, and I believe that's what helps build a community. So we're in the podcasting community, right? And the more we get to know each other in the podcast community, the stronger that community is going to be. And so I began to utilize digital platforms like podcasting, blogging, in order to build up community overall, because we have this hashtag that we use called Community Wins. Okay. And so there's this idea is like, whenever we all come together as a community, we all win. And that's a very special thing. And so when we use these podcasts now to be able to share people's stories, I go to Walmart and somebody be like, man, I never knew that about Ronnie Fields, you know? And it's been really cool to get to know Ronnie. And he's like, I've seen him a million times and I never knew that about him. Right. So that's kind of the thing that I want to see happen out of the podcast. And that's the reason I was trying to do other towns, because I believe in this so much. I'm like, other towns need to be doing this. You're doing it for Oklahoma. Like, you're doing it kind of statewide, which is really great. But I think the smaller you can do it, even just that much better, you know? Yeah. And so, yeah, it's amazing how, and I've had similar stories from that too. Like, you meet someone or you have someone on the podcast and then you see them about a month later, and I said, how was the reaction to it? And I always ask the same question: how was the reaction to your podcast? Did anyone come up to you after listening to it? And they said, for the most part, they say, like, nobody knew this about me, right? And it's amazing how the podcast chair is kind of like the barber chair. Yeah, right? It's a safe place. That's right. It's a safe place to share stories. You never think about, the 500 or 1,000 or 10 people that's going to listen to it, because they're not in the room. Yeah. Right. And if they were in the room, you probably wouldn't share it. Right. Or you wouldn't be as comfortable sharing some you personal things. No. Yeah. And that's really interesting. And that's how kind of fortunate we are, right, to put ourselves in those positions to have those conversations with, and they're real conversations. Yes. I had a podcast, the one I did 2 yesterday, and the second one, a friend of mine who was on the podcast like 4 years ago said, he's 11 months sober. And he's like mid-20s, you know, like he's gone through it all, been lived all over the world, kind of went super viral during kind of earlier last year because of some AI stuff, gained 130,000 Twitter followers in 48 hours, was doing 16-hour back-to-back interviews for 2 or 3 days straight with like massive media outlets because of something he did on Twitter with ChatGPT. And he's like, it just spiraled me. But he's openly talking about it, getting super emotional. And I'm like, I don't know if you have ever spoken about this until now. And I don't know if you've ever spoken about this with someone that's not your counselor. Yeah. Right? Like it felt like a therapy session. But I felt super fortunate to be in that position, right? Because, you know, I'm very lucky to have those conversations and to have the guests trust you in a way that they can talk to you like that and feel comfortable in a place that you're in that's foreign to them. You know, we're not in there, you know, for the most part, like guests come to you, right? Yeah. Or you know, I go to guests. Like it's not like, for the most part, the guest comes to, you know, the Hall of Fame, which isn't their house. It's not a place they're familiar with. But yeah, it's just a great place to share, you know, great stories. And yeah, I you know, someone asked me, you know, like, how do you, well, you asked the same question earlier, how do you feel about 600 episodes? And I feel like I'm just getting started. Yeah. Right? Yeah. You're like, I think I kind of know what I'm doing now. Yeah. Right? Like, how can we improve, right? How can we do more video and camera? How can I get better? And, you know, how can I get better? How can I get bigger guests? But finishing up, one fun question. Tell me about your e-bike, because that's something that's changed. My goodness. Yeah. You know, you're not zipping around town in the Mini anymore. You're on an e-bike. I'm on the e-bike, and it's at the shop right now. You know, it's not sitting over there. It's at the shop, getting new brake pads. Because you've been using it. I've been using it. Yes, the bike shop guy is like, man, you're riding this thing. Look at these brake pads. Because I got my brake, they're air brakes on it. Yeah. And so I had to get those taken care of, whatever. But man, e-bikes are, I wish I would have had one a long time ago. Okay. Right? It lets me get around town whenever I can't walk because I can't get somewhere fast enough. I can jump on that e-bike, but it still gives me this ability to be closer to people where when you're in a car, you may honk. Man, on an e-bike, or if you're walking, you can stop and have a conversation with somebody, or somebody may see you and they're screaming at you, you know. And I really enjoy that. And Guthrie's one of these places where I live in a good spot where I can walk to most places, like the coffee shop, all the restaurants downtown and all that. But that e-bike now gives me like, oh, I can go even further and still make the town small. But e-bikes are great. If you don't have one, you should go get one. Yeah. Depending on where you live at. Like Oklahoma City, I don't know. Like, do you feel like you live downtown? Yeah. But like, I couldn't have one because I'm 20 minutes from downtown Oklahoma City. But I think you're right. Like, it's such in Guthrie, you know, in kind of downtown Edmond area, downtown Oklahoma City, you know, like if you live in that kind of core downtown area, midtown, it makes sense because, like I said, you can't. What you said earlier, you know, you see someone walking around, and that's the one thing I think that America in general doesn't do well is walkability, and Oklahoma is one of the worst for it because we have parking everywhere, especially downtown. But you know, it's if you can walk somewhere and you know listen to things or hear stuff going on and have conversations with people walking down the street or riding, whatever it is, like you're more in touch with the community that you're in. I love it. I love the Guthrie's the walkability of Guthrie America, depending on where you live at, is so good, and that's one of the things about this community that I love. And I used to do a lot more of it. COVID happened, and then the church no longer at the school. Now we have a location, so I have to spend more time there. So it kind of takes me away from the downtown area a little bit more. But man, I love that I can walk just about anywhere around here. Yeah. Final question. What does Guthrie mean to you? Yeah, man, Guthrie is home to me. I was just telling somebody earlier today, like, I'm here. I know this is where I want to be at, which really gives a peace of mind. I feel like a person like myself could be in different places. I don't think I have to live in Guthrie, but I want to, and I really enjoy it. And it's where my family is from, and so to be able to come back home, especially to a church, like it's not often that people can come back to their hometown, especially a smaller community like this, and plant a church. And so, man, I'm thankful that God's given me this opportunity to be able to do this and do this work. So it's a special place.
come have coffee with me.
Yeah. Talk about that. How can people find you? What's the link to schedule coffee with you?
Yeah. Heady Coleman at Gmail is where you can email me. Heady Coleman at gmail.com. Go to heady.media if you want to request potentially having my son and I come out and speak. You can follow me on Instagram at Heady Coleman and message me, DM me. And if you want to come to Guthrie and walk around maybe this summer and grab coffee, let's do it.
Yeah. Awesome, mate. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you, man.
It's been a pleasure.
Yes, sir. Let's do it. I need to figure out how to do 4. I'm going to have to write another ebook or something to make you have to help me on or something. Go viral for something or do something. Because I gotta get 4, y'all.
Gotta get ahead. Gotta be number 1, right? Keep doing what you're doing and you'll get there. Consistency is key.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, for everyone listening, thanks so much. We'll catch you next episode. Cheers. Hope you guys enjoyed that great episode. Thank you so much for listening. As always, huge shout out to our sponsors, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, sharing Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at oklahomahof. Our other sponsor, the Chickasaw Nation, amazing sponsor. They do amazing things for the state, and they're always sponsoring something in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and without their support, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them, do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln. This episode is presented by Citizens Bank of Edmond. Citizens Bank of Edmond has been serving Edmond since 1901. They pride themselves on investing in the community and are here for all your personal and business banking needs. For more information, go to mycitizens.bank and follow them on Instagram at citizensedmond, as well as go bank there, because I bank there too. It's been a fantastic personal experience for me. I've had my podcast account there now, my podcast business account there now for 4 years now, I think, and it's been fantastic. So definitely worth your time. They're a great group of people, and they're always there to answer the phone when I forget my password, because I seem to forget it daily. So yeah, go to Citizens Edmond and check them out. It's been awesome.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.